Welcome to Confessing the Faith, a theological and devotional walk through the 1689 Baptist Confession of Faith. I am your host, Sam Walden, pastor of Grace Reformed Baptist Church in Owensboro, Kentucky, and president of Covenant Baptist Theological Seminary. Today we continue to consider Chapter 19 of the Confession, which takes up the great biblical and Reformed doctrine of the law of God. An enormously important, but sadly in our day, controversial teaching of the Confession is the threefold classification of the law of God. This teaching is found in paragraphs 3 and 4, where we read, "Besides this law commonly called moral, God was pleased to give to the people of Israel ceremonial laws, containing several typical ordinances, partly of worship, prefiguring Christ, his grace, his actions, sufferings, and benefits, and partly holding forth diverse instructions of moral duties, all which ceremonial laws, being appointed only to the time of Reformation, are by Jesus Christ, the true Messiah and only lawgiver, who was furnished with power from the Father for that end, abrogated and taken away. To them also he gave sundry judicial laws, which expired together with the state of that people, not obliging any now by virtue of that institution, their general equity only being of moral use." The confession in these paragraphs distinguishes three types of laws in the law of Moses: the moral, the ceremonial, and judicial, and asserts that the ceremonial and judicial have been fulfilled and abolished, but that the moral law continues to bind all men. Perhaps no part of the confession's teaching regarding the law of God is more controversial than this in our day. It has been described as artificial, because Scripture does not neatly divide the Mosaic laws into ceremonial, moral, and judicial segments. It has been described as anachronistic because, it is said, the distinctions between moral, judicial, and ceremonial laws would never have been evident to Jews living under the Old Covenant. Now, several admissions are appropriate. Certainly in many places in the law of Moses, one may find moral, judicial, and ceremonial laws mixed together. Certainly, each kind of law was equally binding on the Jews. Certainly, these distinctions were not as evident to the Jews as they are to us today. The confession's classification is, however, demanded by the following biblical considerations. The Bible clearly, in the first place, distinguishes between the Ten Commandments and the rest of the Mosaic laws. And I think we must emphasize this as one of the premier evidences for the threefold classification of the law. The unique position and importance of the Ten Commandments is indicated by the facts that they alone were spoken by the voice of God, they alone were written by the finger of God, they alone were placed in the ark of God, they alone were accompanied by the terror of God on Mount Sinai, and they alone were inscribed in stone. They are distinguished from the other commandments, statutes, and judgments of the Mosaic law. See Deuteronomy 4:12-14, 5:1-3, and 5:30-6:3. The actual structure of Exodus lends support to this classification. In Exodus 20, the moral law is given. In Exodus 21-23, the civil laws, or at least the epitome of them, are found. And in Exodus 24, the covenant book is ratified. In Exodus 25 and the following chapters, ceremonial laws regarding the construction of the tabernacle are given. While the Ten Commandments alone are written on stone by God himself, the judicial law is written in a book by Moses. Exodus 31:18, 32:15 and 16, 34:4 and 28, and especially Exodus 24:4-7. In consequence of such a clear distinction, Old Testament believers did distinguish, we may say, between the moral law and the civil and ceremonial law. And there are a number of passages that make this clear: 1 Samuel 15:22, Psalm 40:6-8, Psalm 51:16 and 17, Jeremiah 7:22 and 23. But perhaps Psalm 40, verses 6-8 is particularly clear and important in showing this distinction between moral and ceremonial laws and how it existed in the minds of Old Testament believers. There we read, "Sacrifice and meal offering you have not desired, my ears you have opened, burnt offering and sin offering you have not required. Then I said, behold, I come. In the scroll of the book it is written of me, I delight to do your will, O my God. Your law is within my heart.